Mic check, mic check. Before we start this restaurant fiction episode, I need your help. I need a huge favor. For all of the fans of restaurant fiction and the occasional listeners of restaurant fiction, please go on iTunes and give us a review and rate us. It's the main way how we continue to have these amazing guests and provide you with awesome content. Thank you. Fade in. Cut to.
Exterior. Interior.
Restaurant.
Bar. Club.
Day.
Night.
Action! What's going on, everyone? This is the Restaurant Fiction Podcast, the podcast that reviews fictional restaurants, bars, and clubs featured in TV and film, as well as provide key insight on the screenwriting process. I'm your host, Monis Rose, and our guest today is Graham Yost, creator and showrunner of the FX show Justified. Graham helps break down the two dominant bars featured in Harlan County, as well as go in depth with how a writer executes chemistry between two characters on the page. Plus, though Graham knows a lot about Elmore Leonard's works, he also knows a heck of a lot about the movie Galaxy Quest. You'll see why. Now, without any further ado, here's the review of the High Note Bar from Justified and my interview with Graham. Guys, Restaurant Fiction just got back from a road trip. Yep, we love going on the road actually, and this time around we went to the south. We went all the way to Bourbon Country. We went all the way to where the KFC is supreme. We went all the way to pretty much Wildcat and Cardinals country. We went to Kentucky. That's right. But actually, if you don't mind, we actually did not go to Louisville. We did not go for the horse races or the Cardinals game. We went 3 hours south of Lexington. Yeah, that's right. So the only kind of collegiate flag you're going to see is a Wildcat flag. The place we went to is the High Note Bar. And our guest today is Graham Yost. Why is Graham here? Because he is also an aficionado and an experienced patron of the High Note Bar. So let's get to it. What's really significant about the High Note Bar? Well, from the looks of it, when you walk in, really nothing when you walk in. I mean, it's really a no-frills sports bar. Yeah, maybe like somebody lives above the place or not, but I mean, there's nothing truly special from first impressions. What I mean by that is you get the plain wooden tables, you get the Tiffany lamps. Yes, there are the neon signs advertising beer and booze. The beer on tap is Dos Equis, and the major labeled stuff that one can see is just regular Jack Daniels and Wild Turkey. Now, like In-N-Out has a secret menu, the High Note Bar in a way has a secret menu too, but really just secret stuff, a secret stash. We found this out because we were nice, we were kind. If you are not kind or nice in this place, let's just say there is no bouncer at the High Note Bar, only a shotgun, and the bartender has one. We did not get to see that. We only saw the special reserve stuff behind the counter. Yes, the bartender poured us Wild Turkey 14. Now, what is Wild Turkey 14? Well, it's $40 a shot stuff. That's better than 101 in the generic, and it's delicious. Yes, it tastes like toffee, molasses, and clementine all rolled up into one. Oh, the drinking did not stop there. No siree bap. We had bullet barrel strength. Now that's a whole nother level than just the regular bullet that's served at the hipster craft cocktail old fashioned bar. Yes, it because it was more mellow, tasted more. It was tasted more like florals, a mellow with the hint of florals all around. The last one, because we only had three. I guess little drams, if you will, maybe a little bigger than a dram, was Four Roses single barrel. And the Four Roses single barrel was like a dessert. Yeah, it was like a smooth liqueur almost that you put on top of ice cream. Hints of cherries, vanilla, and chocolate. It melted my ice cream up and made a little single barrel, Four Roses single barrel float. It was delicious. So who's frequenting the High Note bar? Well, at first impressions, there's some criminals and corporate greed. You know what I'm talking about. Yes, you know a criminal when you see one, or at least you see one in the High Note bar. Same with corporate greed. That did not scare us because at the same time, sitting in a really good spot, probably at the bar, are U.S. Marshals. Yes, it's a hangout spot for U.S. Marshals. So there's a fine balance of the creme de la creme who live and breathe in Harlan County. This is not saying a great representation of Kentucky in general, just of this world. And because of that, we always want to come back, even though when we're drinking, we want to get out. All right, so Graham, what'd you think?
So, yes, now there was a place, and I can't remember what it was called. It was in Lexington. It was walking distance from the hotel we stayed in. We went down the weekend before the final episode of the series aired. We went to Kentucky, and we hung out with some marshals for a bit, and then we went down to Harlan. A bunch of the marshals came with us on their off time. Showed the final episode to the people of Harlan. But there was a restaurant we went to that we would just walk to, and I do remember they served the bourbon that you haven't discussed, which is Pappy Van Winkle. Pappy Van Winkle, and by the way, this is one of the funniest things about this show. This is a bourbon-soaked show. Everyone's, or they're either drinking bourbon or cracking a beer or having something. I don't drink. I haven't had a drink in a long time for very good reasons, but at any rate, it was fun to write about it. And Elmore Leonard, for a big period of his life, he write about all these boozers, and yeah, he wasn't drinking either. But anyway, but my assistant knew about Pappy Van Winkle, and so we worked it into a script, and we were always hoping that we could get some.
Well, you could really tell of who has maybe a finer palate by what he or she orders, versus, I'll just have the bullet versus I'll have the bullet reserve single batch.
Absolutely, and that was sort of part of the thing with Boyd, is that Boyd Crowder had this sort of slightly elevated sense of himself and all of that, so of course he would gravitate towards the Pappy. That's sort of, to him, a little bit of was the promised land to him, that he was going to live in a house on the hill and he'd be able to drink Pappy Van Winkle and have Ava at his side. It didn't quite work out that way for him, but that, I think, was his dream. We went to this restaurant in Lexington, and it was $50 a shot, and I think we got a shot for the table. I didn't have any, but the other people, Joelle Carter and Ingrid Escajeda and a couple of the other writers, I think they all took sips of it. Yeah, and they said it was great. Dave Andron, one of the writers, came into some money, and to invest it, he bought a case of Pappy, figuring that it will only go up in value over the years. And I'll give you his address. It's in the back closet on the floor, the case. I'm kidding. I don't know where it is.
No, for all of our listeners, what Graham is saying is the truth. Pappy Van Winkle's, you can probably get it on eBay. We last saw for $1,600 a bottle.
Fantastic.
Yes, yeah, and that's, I think, just the regular. That's not even any kind of special or anything like that.
What went into the creation of the High Note?
The bars that we created on the show, the High Note in Lexington and Johnny's Bar in Harlan, were much more down and dirty. Pretty sure we called it the High Note because that was the name of the label that Dave Alvin, the singer-songwriter that I love, who appeared in the show in season 2, and then wrote a song for us and did some other stuff for us in season 4. But anyway, he was originally on a label called, it was High Tone, but that didn't work, so we call it the High Note.
You placed a number of key scenes, showdowns, and even fights in a bar throughout the entire series of Justified. Is there an advantage of putting these scenes into a bar, and also what's the appeal in having them there?
Well, I think there's a bunch of things that go into it, and we'll just start with the practicality. That one of the reasons we decided to have both the High Note Bar in Lexington for seasons 3 and a bit into season 3 and a bit into season 4 was to have a place for Raylan to have other scenes, and so we could build it on the stage. And similarly, we built Johnny's Bar. We went to a bar in season 1, and I think we went back there once, and then we decided from season 2 on just to build it. And the reason for that is you've got another place you can go, so you're not out on location. And you can move a lot faster when you're shooting on the stage. You've got all the lights all set and everything. So that's a practical thing. The other thing is that you can get great lighting. They can really look good because there's neon and there's lights behind the bar and the reflections off mirrors. There's always mirrors in bars. And then the different colors of the liquor and the light refracted through the liquor and how that is. And there's wood. You can have those lights over the pool tables, which also is not necessarily a sponsorship thing, but it's sort of a product placement thing. And the production, now, one of the secret truths of Hollywood is the production doesn't see any of that money. That just goes to the studio network. It doesn't mean, we get another $5,000 to play with because we've got a Bud Light over the pool table. No. But the other thing is that it makes it feel real. So it's not, Harvest beer or, New Times beer or something like that. It's a real brand and makes it feel more lived in and real. Another thing is that because there's alcohol, things can go wrong. People can get a little too upset, react a little too quickly, be a little more emotional. So you're more likely to get into something that could go sideways. And then the other thing is, also practical, you can wire up bottles to explode and it looks really cool. You can splinter the bar, you can have lights get hit, neon get hit, but especially those bottles, you can reset the bottles in a couple of minutes, and squib them up, get ready for the next shot, and stuff blows up.
All right, so in the episode Guy Walks Into a Bar, which we have talked about earlier, but for everyone who's not familiar with this particular episode, is that the final showdown almost happens in an all-out duel. It ends with an all-out duel with our main character, Raylan, and the antagonist of Quarles of this season. Mm-hmm. Well, anyway, why'd you put them at the High Note? Why not any other location?
So that was a fraught episode. So this was VJ Boyd. It was the first time he was going to write on an episode. He had been a PA in the first season, and he'd been in the room, but really just sort of soaking it up in the second season. Now this third season, he's going to get a script. It's later in the order. I forget what number it was. It was maybe the 8th out of 13 or 9th out of 13, maybe even 10th out of 13. He got the nod, and I'd had this idea about a siege. So we broke this whole episode. We were going to have a siege in the bar. There's a bad guy, and he's taking hostages. And then Tim Oliphant, who played Raylan, rightly noted, and I wouldn't always say that Tim rightly noted, but in this case, he had a lot of great notes. And this was one of them. He said, guys, this is late in the season. We can't do a standalone episode. We need to have it come back to Raylan and Quarles and that central conflict of the season. We know that the season is building to some kind of showdown with Quarles. We know he's got a slide gun in his sleeve that he can shoot out. When are we going to see that again? It was all... Could we build to sort of a false climax and yet make it satisfying? And the twist on it was kind of that Raylan had kind of a flirty thing going on with the barkeep.
Lindsay,
played by Jen Lyons. And side note, Tim went on after the end of Justified and did a play off Broadway written by Kenneth Lonergan, and he was co-starring with Jen Lyons. They were doing scenes together. It was great that they got back together. But anyway, we just thought the idea of her pulling out a shotgun was badass, and it was very much like Elmore Leonard. That was our guiding principle throughout the whole series: is what would Elmore do? Having this, very pretty, very funny, very smart person, but having her pull out the shotgun and sort of putting these two men in their place, we thought was the right thing for that. And I believe that's sort of how the showdown ends.
What you just described, and for the Justified fans out there, actually that was a mirror of
the pilot in a way, because in the pilot,
Ava comes in with a shotgun.
Exactly.
And that ends up setting everything off. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So going to the pilot, you have two pivotal scenes of the pilot featured around food. The first one, when we actually meet our main character, who's going to carry this entire series, Raylan Givens, we meet him at a bougie, rooftop place in Miami. He's not eating, but he's at a table filled with crab cakes, before he shoots, I believe it was Tim Bucks or something,
Tommy Bucks.
Tommy Bucks, yes. But
played Peter Green. Yep.
But there was crab cakes. And then and then you bookend it with the big showdown between Raylan, Boyd, and then Ava coming in. Around the dinner table with fried chicken, mashed potatoes, really home cooking. Like,
I think they were mashed yams.
Oh, mashed yams. Okay.
The detail. There was even one other scene. There's a scene in a diner, a restaurant between Raylan and his boss, Art Mullen, where Art's saying that basically they're going to use Raylan as bait to get Boyd. They're going to he's going to be the goat when they're waiting for the lion to attack.
What is it about food?
Well, so first of all, both of those were Elmore's. They were in the novella Fire in the Hole.
Okay.
And he talked about Raylan having this showdown with Tommy Bucks in a Miami restaurant, and that it was a beach restaurant. It was a beach hotel, but it was more sort of one of the big fancy beach level dining room things. So when Michael Dinner, who's directing it, had the scouting done, it just became apparent that, boy, if you could get up to one of those rooftop places, that would just be stunning because it would be so beautiful. Now, the reality was that place we shot in wasn't a restaurant. It was a bar. It was a rooftop bar. There was a pool, and, wealthy young things go up there and drink, get their bottle service and all that crap.
A lot of skin.
It's Miami. And, I don't know. So what? We'll just set up a few tables at the corner here, and we'll shoot it down here, and we'll say it's a restaurant. It's Hollywood. We'll do what we want, and it'll feel real enough. But in Elmore's thing, there's a lot of talk about food with Raylan. Raylan was also, his big thing was ice cream. There's a couple things in the Raylan legend where ice cream sort of got in the way of things. Like he goes to get an ice cream cone and a fugitive gets away from him. That kind of thing. So Elmore loved to have characters talk about food and movies and things like that. And so being food oriented was right. For the scene at the end at Ava's house, she tells Raylan the story when he first sees her again after all these years of them not having seen each other. Tells the story of how she killed her husband. And how she made him his favorite dinner, and it was the candied yams, maybe, or mashed yams.
Yeah, I believe so.
And
yeah,
it was, and a ham or something, and gravy. I can't remember the specific lines, but how she waited until he had a mouthful of food, and then she shot him. So we felt like, and that was Boyd's brother, so it needed to come back to a dinner scene. I mean, that's what Elmore had. He understood that sense of, well, of course it's going to be at a dinner scene. And there's also something about guns on the table.
See, guys, doing a showdown around the dinner table, you get a lot more attention that way sometimes.
Well, if you think of, who else loved Elmore Leonard and still does, is Quentin Tarantino.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Jackie Brown. Elmore
Yes.
always felt that was the best film adaptation of any of his books. Even though Quentin changed the title, changed the race of the main character, moved it from Florida to California, he still just loved it.
Well, pretty much even all of Quentin's dialogue is based off of, or his heavily influenced
by Elmore. Mm-hmm. He had once said that early on in his career, he was thinking he would adapt an Elmore, do one of his own, adapt an Elmore, and just go back and forth. That's how much he loved Elmore. In the Kill Bill movies, everything, it starts out huge. Think how big those big scenes are with the, in the big scenes.
Like the wedding and all of that.
The wedding, and it's just huge. But they get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until it's finally just the bride versus David Carradine across the table. And so there is something when you can build to that tension of just two people looking at each other across the table. That's pretty awesome. And so we felt that with the opening we had that, and we would also get that again at the ending.
In terms of writing, one of the appealing factors on Justified is the chemistry between Raylan and Boyd. Some actors paired together, they either have chemistry or they don't, which is out of a writer's control. But how do you execute that level of chemistry on the page?
That's a really good question. I think that, on the page, the way Elmore had it in the novella, The fact that when Raylan and Boyd see each other after all these years, they give each other a big hug, even though Raylan's a marshal and he's looking for Boyd, and Boyd's a bad guy. That's the beginning of their chemistry. I think the other thing is that because of that, these two characters are, mirror images of each other, or other side of the coin, or whatever, simple way you want to frame it, but that they could give each other crap and see through each other and call each other on their bull, so that they couldn't get away with anything. And from that comes a respect. So these guys respected each other to a degree. Now, Tim would argue over the years that Raylan was sick and tired of Boyd. And there was a sense that he was, but there was something there that Boyd wasn't dead and he wasn't in jail. So he's doing something right at his job, which is being a criminal. And so I think that Raylan sort of respected that. Boyd certainly respected Raylan, because I think Raylan to him was the older brother that he never had, that he was sort of looking up to. It's just, the Elmore rule, and the rule that I've long tried to apply, is respect. If you want chemistry, these characters have to respect each other. If you look at the great screwball comedies or Philadelphia Story or any of these things, and I use comedy a lot because Elmore is a very funny writer, and I'd certainly try to be, is if two characters have the same sense of humor, and that is the click. That is the thing where they look at each other and go, you get the joke. I get the joke. We both get the same joke. It's like Jack Foley and Karen Sisko in the trunk of the car and Out of Sight. She's a marshal, he's an escaped convict. And they start talking about movies, and you realize, click. They both look at the world kind of the same way. There's usually a certain bittersweet character to it, a little sense of poetry, a little sense of romance. So even if it's two men, and it's not a gay story, they still need to have that affection for each other. But as you said, it's out of our hands. So if you don't get the right actors, it's just not going to happen.
Obviously, your IMDb has it. We went from Nickelodeon to big budget action movies to World War II series to an adaptation of Elmore Leonard, and now a series about a conman. You've managed this wide range of genres across all mediums. Any advice for writers who are hoping for a varied career and don't want to get pigeonholed in one place?
The thing about being a writer is that it really ultimately comes down to the page. So there was a writer on Justified who also joined us for the second season of Sneaky Pete, Ingrid Escajeda. One of the jokes between us is that at one point she was pretty sure, and that I was not sure of her last name. And it was because I started thinking I had to say it in public, and I was thinking of Alejandro Escovedo. But anyway, Ingrid Escajeda, and she was 3 seasons on Justified. She had started in half-hour comedy. She wrote for Hannah Montana. She wrote for Better Off Ted. And she said to herself that she wanted to write hour-long. So she sat down and she wrote an hour-long pilot called Left of Boom about an LAPD bomb squad. And Fred Golan and I were looking to staff going into the 3rd season, I'm pretty sure, of Justified, and read that script and met with her and was absolutely hired her on the spot. As a writer, you can just write yourself out of any pigeon.
What are the biggest learning lessons you've had in your career as a writer?
One thing is as one accumulates some years, you can look back and say, wow, I got through that before. This isn't the first time, that you can pick yourself up and dust yourself off and move on again. And it's also that you don't know what the story is going to be. You don't know how it's going to go. There have been so many projects I've worked on, and I could give you a long list of things. It's like, damn, I wish that had gone forward. And then other ones, it's like, boy, I was really passionate about that, but I'm kind of glad it didn't go forward. I think maybe we really dodged a bullet on that one. Taylor Elmore wrote this great pilot. He was one of the writers on Justified about life aboard an aircraft carrier. And we got really close to shooting a pilot and ended up not for a bunch of reasons. But boy, that would have been a real pain in the ass to make that show. You just don't know, and you don't know when things are going to turn. And, failures, and what is a failure? So I did a show for end of 2003 called Boomtown. We did 18 episodes the first season, 6 the second, and then we were canceled. I'm very proud of the work we did. And again, you don't know what you're going to get from things. The show Reigns, got to work with Jeff Goldblum. That's where I met Wendy Calhoun, Taylor Elmore, Dave Andron as writers, all important parts of life going forward. So you just don't know how it's going to turn out. And, as I advance in years, and how do you measure success? And I would say the simple success and the most important success in this business is getting to keep doing what you love to do. I mean, that's it. It's all the bells and whistles are the cash and prizes are fine, but I didn't get into it for that. That's not true. That's totally why I got into it. No, I mean, that's all nice, and it's great. But boy, oh boy, just, I always wanted to make movies and make TV shows, and so to have gotten to do that has been pretty wonderful.
Besides being an expert on the High Note bar, you're also an expert on the mess hall inside the spaceship NSEA Protector 2. Now, what was that spaceship? That was the spaceship featured in the Tim Allen movie Galaxy Quest. Yes, you are a major fan of Galaxy Quest. So what about the mess hall in Galaxy Quest resonates with you?
Okay, so these are all actors. So Tim Allen, Sigourney Weaver, Alan Rickman, Chill Mitchell, I think, and who else? Well, Tony Shalhoub, Sam Rockwell. Oh my God, the cast was just amazing.
Yeah, Justin Long. Everything.
Justin Long. Well, Justin Long is in Earth. He stays on Earth, but there's all this group who has done this TV show like Star Trek. It's long been canceled, and in the premise of the movie, they're taken into space because this alien civilization thinks that the television show was historical documents, that these people really are, know how to fight a space war, and they want them to fight the bad guys for them. So they really are believed by these aliens to be, some of their characters. Alan Rickman played the actor's name was Alexander something, but I remember what his character name was. But anyway, he was the one by Rothgar's hammer. I will avenge.
And he was so tired to say that all the time.
Oh God, he didn't want to say it.
He didn't want to say it at all.
Tagline, and then there was one of the greatest moments in film history when he takes up that line. But he was presumed to be an alien, so you get into the mess hall, and everyone's being served by these nice aliens that we're rooting for the food that they think they would like the most. So the humans are getting, regular sort of human food, and then in front of Alan Rickman is some kind of googly glop of things that are still alive, and it was just hilarious. It fit with the story so perfectly, and made logical sense, and was just hilarious.
Would you eat what he's eating?
Absolutely not. No.
They
I'm
do
not
those...
that courageous of an eater.
Okay, gotcha. They do have a blue Hawaii looking drink though too. I was also curious in
Lord
that
knows
scene.
what it was. Yeah. Oh, one other thing about Galaxy Quest.
Absolutely.
Directed by Dean Pariseau. Dean
he directed some of your Justified.
Some of our getting the chance to work with Dean Pariseau was just so awesome, and he's an old friend of Sarah Timberman's, so he was really just came and he was part of the family. He did several really big episodes for us, and just an absolute prince.
Wait, did you geek out at all?
I totally geeked out on him. I told him that my brother said, and I agree with my brother, that if, Desert Island, one movie, if it's only one movie, it would be Galaxy Quest. Because it's so funny, and it's exciting, and it's everything all wrapped up into one. And Dean also, unfortunately for him, I think, we kind of look alike. We had longish gray hair, and I think devilishly handsome, but no, it was just,
Absolutely.
I like the cut of that guy's jib. It was just great to hang out with him. Just a real sweetheart, and just such a great director.
Galaxy Quest, guys, if you haven't seen it, please see it.
If you haven't seen it, you're among the luckiest people on earth, because you haven't seen it and you get to enjoy it that first time.
That is true.
And I enjoy it every time I see it, but boy, there's part of me that's like, oh, I remember what it was like the first time I saw it. Anyway.
What are you ordering at the High Note?
When I was down in Kentucky, if it wasn't too late in the day and I was worried about caffeine, get an Ale 8. Ale 8 is a ginger ale, but it's a highly caffeinated ginger ale. I mean, it's rocket fuel. That's a local favorite. There's also still, there's now like with the craft beer movement, there's also craft root beer and sarsaparilla and stuff like that, birch beer. So I'll always go for things like that. And also I'll want to see everyone else I'm with. I want to see how they're, are they getting the Bullet or the Woodford or the Pappy?
What are your favorite places to eat, drink? Pretty much eat in Monterey and even LA or any of your travels.
Okay, so Monterey, I go with a group of friends to this little restaurant on Alvarado Street in Monterey called Rosine's, and it's just a family restaurant that people have been going to for 50 years, and they serve everything from lasagna to hamburgers and club sandwiches. It's just really good food. It's nothing fancy. It's just the classic American good food restaurant. And there are a lot of fancy places in Monterey we love. Luca and BC Clet and a bunch of great places. For the last 5 years of Justified and then the years since, I've had an office, and we had the writer's office for Justified and also Sneaky at the Culver Studios.
In Culver City.
In Culver City. And that Culver City is just chock-a-block full of great restaurants, and there's usually a new one every year that we go.
Have you been to Honey Kettle Fried Chicken?
Of course, we go to Honey Kettle a number of times. There have been a couple that have come and gone. Ford's Filling Station we loved, and then it left. This one, that one. Akasha is a good standby. I had lunch there today. There was a new one that opened this year called Baco, which is sort of a bread-based taco place.
Well, yeah, it's like a step brother of like the Baco Meerkat from downtown.
And boy, just delicious. I don't think this is the best name for a dish, but it was green chicken. I don't think green goes well with any kind of meat. It's not a color you want to associate with meat. But no, it was just delicious. So it was like, oh, it's Baco. We're going to order from Baco today. That's good. Enjoy Eat is another place we love. It's very local there. So we felt very blessed on Justified and Sneaky Pete to have all those restaurant choices for our lunch.
Awesome.
Cool.
Okay, man.
All right, let me just get a picture of you really quick.
Yeah?
And how was the experience?
That was great.
All right, good. You enjoyed it?
Thank you, Graham. That was awesome. Be sure to check out his new show. It's called Sneaky Pete, and season 2 is about to begin. It's on Amazon Prime. For other reviews and interviews with restaurant fiction, be sure to check out our podcast page on iTunes, where you have the ability to rate and review us, as well as check out our website. It's www.restaurantfiction.com. My name is Monis Rose, and as always, keep it real, keep it fresh, and keep it on the flip side. Cut to
Exterior. Interior.
Restaurant?
Bar. Club.
Day.
Night.